Hello everybody, here is my final project, the investigative research project for Art 200, and thank you all for watching. I'd like to begin with an introduction of the topic in which I'll be presenting on. The object that I chose to research is a small sculpture of Buddha, more specifically the Shakyamuni Buddha. I chose to research this sculpture because it is something that has always been around in my house. Not specifically just this sculpture, but many different pieces of Buddhist art. Since my mother did spend 4 years of her life living in Thailand, we have many Buddhist pieces around the house. As a child, I can remember looking at this piece of art and never really thinking much about it. I always thought this was just an ornament since I've seen it in many other houses and stores. I guess I just never really took the time to understand what this statue legitimately meant. While this statue may be seen as a popular and common household decoration, its main function is to tell a story of Siddhartha's transformation from a young prince to a complete and enlightened Buddha. Now that I've given a small introduction about the piece, I'd like to dive a little bit into some more details regarding this statue. I had to do a good amount of research in order just to find out which exact Buddha this was, since there are so many different forms and different types of Buddhas. After searching through different articles and images, I did come to the conclusion that this was the Shakyamuni Buddha, or commonly just known as Siddhartha, who was the first Buddha and the founder of Buddhism. In order to figure this out, we have to know a little bit about iconography and more specifically mudra, which is basically a hand or a body gesture that represents something. Now we see that in this statue, the Buddha is holding his right hand down towards the earth and his left hand is held upright in his lap. This position is called the earth touching gesture. This is most commonly seen on the Shakyamuni Buddha, and is the position that he was sitting in when he became enlightened after he won his battle against the demon Mara, who with the help of his daughters tried to distract him whilst he was in meditation. After his meditation, he awoke with the idea of the Four Noble Truths. Now this is very important because it was the moment that Shakyamuni became the first Buddha. Because of his enlightenment, Buddhism was able to spread and flourish through the East and into the rest of the world, and now is one of the 12 major religions. Some other things that help us believe he is the Shakyamuni Buddha are his enlarged earlobes from the heavy amounts of jewelry that he would be wearing as a prince in his young age, and the bump on the top of his head, which would show us the enlightenment that he's kind of storing up in his brain. Now, I couldn't help but think this was similar to other statues and paintings and figures that I've seen throughout time. A major one that I thought of was the images and paintings and statues depicting the crucifixion of Christ. A good example that we learned about is the Eisenheim altarpiece, which depicts the crucifixion of Jesus. In the altarpiece, we see a very recognizable feature, such as the cross and the position in which Jesus is nailed to it, as well as the crown of thorns. Those are some pretty noticeable features of the painting. This iconography can help people to instantly recall what this moment is and the meaning behind all of it. In addition, I thought about the Tlaloc vessel and how it has many other noticeable features such as the fangs or the twisted nose, all of these which help the viewer to figure out what the painting is representing as a whole. These small features all contribute to a larger story, and it was really fascinating to me once I started to dive a little bit deeper into the concept of iconography, because without all of these identifiable features to the art, the story kind of gets left out and it just becomes another painting or just another statue. In conclusion, I have found from my research that these popularized Buddha sculptures are more than just decoration. They hold their value to Buddhist culture, and they tell the story of a young Siddhartha who chose to leave his lavish life of a prince and sought to find truth and enlightenment. He was successful on his journey and became the first Buddha. His beliefs and teachings live on throughout the centuries and are still relevant to living a good life, even if you aren't in the Buddhist religion. Thanks to the iconography, we can easily identify which Buddha this is. And these Buddhist figures, they did emerge in the early centuries in Tibet, and there are some real ones left. The one that's at my house is a mass-produced copy of the relic. While it is not a real one, I was still able to learn something new about history through this art piece. I had never really jumped into this realm of deep analysis of art, but it did fascinate me how important of a role art plays in telling a story and keeping it alive throughout time. I think that it would benefit a lot of people to just take the time to research some of the art that they do have in their house and maybe learn about some of the traditions and history that it has behind it. And I am glad that I was able to learn so much about the history of this artwork that I've always been exposed to and I've always wondered about. And I'm excited to share my knowledge with others. And thank you all for listening.